Welcome to the third video in the AVID data series. In this video, we'll look at several different sections of the California Department of Education website. We'll see how to look up test scores, API, SAT testing rates, A through G completion rates, graduation rates, post-secondary enrollment, demographics, AP testing, etc. Most of this information can be accessed from the section of the website called DataQuest. Simply go to dq.cde.ca.gov/DataQuest. Here you'll see a menu that lets you select what level of data you want to see, state, county, district, or school. For this video, we'll choose Riverside County as the target level in all of our examples. Below that is a menu that allows you to choose which data you'd like to see. We'll look deeply at a few of these like API, A through G completion, SAT testing rates, and those types of things. This is the website where we'll get a lot of the information that will put your AVID data into context. For example, if your AVID A through G completion rate is 96%, how does that compare to the school-wide, county-wide, or statewide overall A through G completion rates? That data can be accessed through DataQuest. Now let's take a look around. First thing I'll do is I'll choose the level. And as I said in the introduction, I'm going to choose county level. And here are some of the reports that you can see at any level. Here you can see the school's API and AYP status. You can look up high school exit exam results, SAT, ACT, and advanced placement test results, STAR test results, the CST tests. You can look up the dropout rate for the school, the enrollment, which includes the demographics, the graduates, that's where you can see how many completed A through G courses. And then there's a new section on the DataQuest website for post-secondary transition. And this shows how many graduates from a particular school or district or county are enrolled in college presently nationally or in California. And when they talk about post-secondary, they're talking for-profit, non-profit, public, private, trade school. They lump all of the post-secondary options together. And then all the way down at the bottom is where you can create your own report to look at any of these factors that you want just by checking boxes. There's other information here, but it's not important to the PowerPoint that we're completing, but feel free to look around and see if there's anything of interest to you after this video is finished. So let's start at the top and we will look at API first. So the drop-down box, or when you're at the school level, it'll have you type in part of the school's name. I can go to here, Riverside County, and click Submit. And then it gives me a list of all of the different reports that I could look for. The difference between the base API and the growth API is not that big of a difference, but when you look for the school level, there's one other report that has a list of 100 similar schools. And that's important when you compare your school to other schools. CDE has come up with a calculation to calculate the demographics and the parents and the community and the size of the school. It's identified 100 schools that are similar to yours in all of those ways. And so if you're going to compare your school to another school, it's good to do it based upon a CDE identified similar school. Now, sometimes the comparisons aren't perfect. You might find a really small private school in with your big public comprehensive high school. So you might eliminate those or just focus on the schools that are in your county or in Southern California. So once you see the list of 100 similar schools, you can do what you wish with it. Generally, for me, I find schools in the same county that I know of, and I can verify that they are similar. So in the county version of this, you can see a list of all of the schools, and it tells you the growth, the base, the target, and the 2010-11 growth. So for example, Arlanza Elementary School had a 2011 API of 764. The year before, they were 733 had a 5-point growth target and grew 31 points. Now the base and the growth don't always match up perfectly. There's some adjustment in there, which is why 733 plus 31 doesn't add up to 764. So what you might use this information for is one of the slides and one of the Excel spreadsheets is going to give you the ability to calculate the API of your AVID students. So you can compare the API of your AVID students to the API of the school. Also, when you look up a school, let me go back. I'll click on Arlanza just so I can show you. You can also find out which of the tests had a certain weight in the API. So from this, you can see that the English Language Arts CST made up 56% of the school's API. The Math CST was 37%, and the CST in Science Grade 5 was 6% of the school's API. And when you look up a high school, you can get even more information out of that report. So let's see, let's find a high school, Beaumont Senior High. So under the school content area weights for Beaumont Senior High, you can also see there are additional things. There's the high school exit exam. ELA made up 10.5%, math made up 10.5%, and then there's these assignment of 200 categories. Any 9th or 11th grader who doesn't take a science CST automatically gets a far below basic with a reduced weight. So that's what the assignment of 200 is. And so this school had 160 students get the automatic far below basic, and it added up to 0.4% of their entire API. There's also a mandatory 10th grade science test that was 3.1%. There's a history test that they didn't have in elementary school that was 13%. So all of these things add up to the total 100%, where the test weights don't necessarily add up to 100%. So that's some of the information you can get from the API section of the DataQuest website. Let's take a look at SAT, ACT, and AP. So again, I'll submit. Here you would put the name of your school. I'm going to choose Riverside County. So here I can find out how many students took SAT tests and scored above a certain level, ACT tests and scored above a certain level, and AP tests and scored above a certain level. So let's take a look at AP tests. So here we have, they broke it down by district, but what we want to see is what they give you. They tell you how many 12th graders and 11th and 12th graders were enrolled in this district, how many exam takers there were, and how many students scored a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5 on that exam. So this is information that you could compare the percentage of students who took AP tests in the school versus the percentage in AVID, the percentage who scored a 3, 4, or 5 in the school versus the percentage in AVID. So it gives you some more information to put your AVID data in context. STAR test results. You can also compare AVID STAR test results with the rest of the schools. So I don't need to go to Riverside County. I could just do Alameda County here to show you what you see. So I'll just view the report for the county, but you would drop down the district and the school to select your own school and then view report. And basically you can see what percentage of the students in each one of the tests scored advanced, proficient, basic, below basic, and far below basic. So it gives you every one of the CST tests and the breakdown by grade level of how they performed on the CST test. So this is the information that you would use to calculate the API of your AVID students. But since AVID isn't one of the filters on the CDE website, you'll have to get that information from your district office, and we'll talk about that more later. Graduates is one of the most important to AVID programs, particularly because it allows you to look up the A through G completion rates for your students. And they don't necessarily call it that, but I'll show you what they do call it. So for Riverside County, and you can see 2009-10 is the most recent data available, even though we're almost at the end of the 2012 school year when this was recorded. So you want to look at two things that might be interesting here. Graduation rates are pretty interesting, and the number of grads with UC CSU required courses. By that, they mean the number of A through G completers. So we can submit that here, and we can see for the county, it's broken down by ethnic group and by gender. So for Asian students in Riverside County, there was a 64% completion rate for females, 57% for males. Combined, it was 60.9. So if we scroll all the way to the right, we'll see overall for the county, it was 32% completion rate for females, 23% for males, and 28% overall. And just below that is the state, where it was 40.5% for females, 31% for males, and 36% overall. So we can see the county was a little bit behind the state. And in AVID, we're up in the 90s. So the AVID A through G completion rate is far higher than the state and the county. And keep in mind that this is overall, so AVID students are counted in this as well. And I calculated once that about 25% of these A through G completers are AVID students. So that number for Riverside County would actually be around 21% if you took out all of the AVID students. So that's interesting information that could help you put your data into context. The post-secondary transition, because there's so many post-secondary institutions included in this measure, it's not as interesting as AVID coordinators probably want. And the information is very old. It's 2006, 2007 information. So if we could break it down by UC, CSU, public, private, it would be great, but it doesn't work that way. As you'll see, it breaks it down. Here are the total high school graduates, the number enrolled in post-secondary, the percent enrolled in California post-secondary, the number who completed 1 year of credit within 2 years of post-secondary, and the percentage. So you can see for Riverside County in total, there are 9,900 out of 22,000 enrolled. That's 45%, and 21% of them had completed 1 year of credit within 2 years. So that's a pretty poor retention rate. Less than half of the students enrolled in college, and less than half of them earned 1 year of credit within 2 years. So again, you can see a lot of important information that'll help you put things into context. And then it's broken down by free and reduced price lunch or socioeconomically disadvantaged English learners and students with disabilities. So we won't spend a lot of time with the rest of these items. You can look for misconduct and interventions. You can go down and create your own reports and look at Healthy Kids Survey. There's a lot of information here, but that's all we're going to look at deeply now. Once we get to the slides where we use this information, we'll come back here and we'll take a look at it again. So that's the end of this video. Take the opportunity to practice on the DataQuest website, and when you're ready, open up the next video where you'll get a tour of the AVID Center data website, where you can see general data and senior data and trends in AVID data and all of those great things. So thanks for joining me.